Okay, well what I'm going to do now is to introduce you to the work you're going to be doing today and for the next week or so about the small presentations that I mentioned last week, which are for you to practice working together, practice researching, doing a little bit of SAS work, and then producing a relatively short presentation. And I'm going to take you through what I want, what the purpose is, and then basically you'll get on and start researching, and we'll record in that little spreadsheet which of the weeks you guys are going to do. And the idea is that if we have 10 groups, you'll each need to do 2 presentations over the next 5 weeks. Or each group will do it. If we haven't got that number, then we might change the number of presentations each week so that you each end up with 2 presentations over the 5 weeks. And as you remember, part of this is, the aim is for you to develop your understanding and expertise in SAS. It goes in parallel with what you're working on in those 20 chapters exercises and the tests that are now all there. They all should, if Blackboard works properly, they should give you, as you complete each test, your score of correct answers. I've changed it now so that you do, or that your highest score is collected by the system. I can see that each week. You will be able to see what you've got. I'll produce a little list which I'll post up there sometime probably tomorrow with student numbers, not names, so that it's sort of somewhat confidential. And you'll be able to see what your best score is so far. There are an interesting range of best scores from about 1 to somebody has managed to get 9 at one stage, but you know, you can do it as many times as you like, and you have got, for each of the tests, until the 18th of April. Got plenty of time to work and work and work on it. Now, you need to ensure that you get at least 6 out of 10 in each of your tests. The reason for that is that SAS Institute have just released a license to us, which we will be completing very shortly, which allows us to give you a certificate of competence in SAS. It's not the base SAS certificate, which you've got to take somewhere, test somewhere else, but it's one that we will be tracking that you have got more than 60% on these exercises, and you'll probably want to get, I'll have to check the exact wording, you'll probably need to get at least 60% on the SAS system that you build, and with that you will then have a certificate which, as you start applying for jobs in the autumn for your second year, your placement year during the 3rd year, this will be evidence that yes, I have done SAS, and you've got this little certificate that shows that you've done a lot of work. You have scored at least 60% on questions which are taken from the base SAS certification manual. The good news, again, is that we have just placed an order for 5 hard copy books of the base certification preparation guide for SAS, and we also have an electronic copy coming which will be available to you through the library system, and up to 3 people at a time concurrently will be able to use it. And several of my colleagues have also put in for additional copies which we are entitled to acquire each semester. We can get 2 books or 2 of the manuals for SAS, and the new extra copies of the base certification, base SAS certification guide are also going to go into the library. So quite a lot's going on, and the incentive there obviously is for you to do as well as possible, because that way you will get a certificate that will be valuable when you start applying for jobs. And we'll be doing the same next year, in the second semester next year, when you do the business intelligence module, data management and BI, possibly with Lulu. And a lot of the work I want you to research this semester for your presentation will then feed very much into the sort of work that you'll be doing in that module next year. So, group presentations. So we've now got 8 little groups that you're going to work in. I'm going to give you 5 topics, which we'll have a look at in a minute. It's not an exclusive list. If you as a pair decide you'd like to investigate some other aspect of the use of SAS, a way of making it work, we can have a discussion, and then we can agree something different. Each week, we'll spend at least an hour of this session on a Tuesday with you giving your presentations. You will do, as I say, 2 presentations over the 5 weeks, and at the end of each presentation, we will also have a little bit of a peer review and feedback. I'll give you the clues at the back end of this presentation as to what this review will cover. And again, it's part of learning to work together to improve. Part of the sort of thing we're trying to get over as employability is you know how to work in groups and teams. So little groups of 2, but as a team of 20 in principle here, 16 today. And so you can all help each other develop and develop and develop. So, starting with next week, the first topic, the first 4 presentations, is all about importing data into SAS. You've already started doing some of that with some of the exercises. If you look at some of those UCLA tutorials in parallel with that, you will see how you can use the sort of card-in approach, data lines, and so on and so forth. But you've also got another opportunity to investigate is how to use the import wizard, where you can take a CSV file or an Excel file and get SAS to read it in. You can use all sorts of different approaches in terms of the import wizard, and so there's lots of different ways of getting SAS data into the SAS system. So that's the first thing that you need to start thinking about. The 3rd of March, a fortnight from today, we'll be looking at data cleansing, the things that Ian talked to you about in the presentation 2 weeks ago, the ETL data cleansing side. And this is going to be important because, by and large, the little project that you're going to be doing later on, towards the end of term, the real assessed work, I think that was 40%, wasn't it, of the overall score, something like that, is all about getting data into the system, connecting it together, identifying some of the data which is suspect, and getting rid of it. So you've got a clean set of data from which you can do something interesting. Then the 10th of March and the 17th of March are all about producing graphics and using the output data system, export system that creates your reports, that allows you to do all sorts of cool things with it. And with it, it covers both creating HTML output for your reports. It also includes the mechanisms for producing graphics, graphical analysis, histograms, scatter plots, and all of the interesting things that allow humans to handle large amounts of data very, very easily. Visualization, I suppose we could call it. And there are all sorts of interesting things about the ODS system that are kind of cool. And part of the research there is going to come up with some examples of SAS code that drive the ODS system to do exactly what you need and want it to do. And then, for this year, the simple side is the so-called SG, or Statistical Graphics plotting systems which fit within ODS. And you can also get it if you want to have a really nice graph that you want to put into a document that you're writing a report. You can export it, whether it's as a PDF in HTML5, or even better, as a JPEG. And you can control the number of dots per inch. Now the system works as normal for web-based systems at 72 dpi, which is kind of fairly low res. But you can drive it up to any level of resolution you like. And one of the things I've got caught on with a chapter I've just submitted for an edited book up in Edgehill, it requires the images to be output as 600 dpi. Now you can't do that, as far as I know, out of Excel. I've not found out how to do that anyway. But the ODS system allows you to do all sorts of neat and clever things. So how to drive it, switch it on, switch it off, configure it to do what you need. How to make sure that, say, the texty stuff, the reports, go to the HTML or the PDF side. How you can make the graphics go to HTML or PDF or JPEG or PNG, whichever it does. And then the next section on the 17th is, okay, as we're getting all of this data in through these sort of processes, how do we actually present it? And what, as I say, one of the most important ways of handling it is visualization. The graphs, the charts, the scatter plots. And so, as you go through there, you're going to need to find some interesting data where there are interesting opportunities for choosing all sorts of different ways of plotting. And then towards the end of the series, just before Easter on the 24th of March, then we'll have a set of presentations on creating reports. This actually relates very much more to the chapters 9 and onwards of the tutorial material. And that test 4 actually is all about this sort of stuff. So quite a lot of interesting topics, and hopefully each of the groups is going to choose a couple of these. Well, not hopefully, you will. So how do you go about it? Well, one of the things you got is an incredible set of resources available in SAS. Lots and lots of manuals. We've got sort of 120 manuals in total. You've got the base SAS ones in that 120 set. You've got all of the ODS manuals. You've got all of the graphics manuals. You've got various stats ones if you want to look at stats. So first of all, have a look for the best manual for your topic. Have a look at the basics of the topic in there. And again, the manuals, if you choose them carefully, will take you through the very basic aspects first, and then fairly rapidly lead you to more complex understanding of what you're trying to do. So, find the best manual for the topic and understand it. Then, having got that, start looking for some interesting data that you can use. Not too big, not these are 2,000 rows that we want you to use for the actual SAS system you're going to build, but you know, some reasonable amount of data that allows you to demonstrate your topic area. Then you need to develop some SAS code that will actually show how it goes. You get some screenshots. Now, if you're using the data import wizard, then screenshots become completely the only thing you can do, because there won't be any SAS code, perhaps. But you can actually get it to generate the SAS, or show you the SAS code as well, and store it for you. Do the exploration, show the results, and create yourself a short PowerPoint presentation of what you've done and your findings. Just in case you can't find a really good manual in the 120 manual set on the S drive, then if you go to this URL, you can explore and find all of the manuals they've got for SAS 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, which is the one we've got, and 9.4, which is the one we haven't yet got. But don't try to be too clever with too much data. The other thing you need to think about as you identify your topic that you want to work on and work through those ideas up here, think very carefully about what is the aim of your little presentation. Now those of you who did or are BSc IT students, then you will have had 2 presentations from me last term about communication and creating presentations. And I've just posted that the week, was it 8 or 9 or 10, I forget, presentation on how to go about creating a presentation in the week 5 material here on Blackboard for you. So you can go back and remind yourself about the sort of those 4 questions about what do I want to say, what do I need to say, and so on and so forth. And as you'll remember, one of the things about communicating in a presentation or a report is having a very clear understanding of the aim. What are you trying to do? Very clear understanding of your audience. Now, that makes it nice and simple today, or for you guys here, because you know who you're presenting to. You're presenting to each other. You know roughly the level of technical understanding that you've all got because you're working together through those 20 chapters. One thing, of course, is that you would have done some research that only 6 other people in the group of 20 would have done. So you're going to try and identify some interesting things that they may not have researched. So that will help you think about your aim and your audience. The types of slide, well, the title page will have the topic and your names. And rather than just saying importing data, which is the title effectively for week 1, think about having a clearer, more specific title so that we know which bit of importing data you're covering. A short 1 slide covering the context. You know, how does your topic fit in? Where does it fit into the field of data analysis, which is what this module is about, Introduction to Data Analysis. So how does your topic and your particular focus fit into developing your and our understanding of where data analysis with SAS is going to take us? The next slide is recommended to be, what is the purpose? Thinking about the code that's being generated, the actual SAS code, whether it's how the import wizard generates a SAS code which you can actually code it, get it to export for you so you can see what it's doing. What does this chunk of code, this subset of the task, do for a data analyst? So where does it fit within the field of data analysis, and what exactly is it doing and benefiting to a data analyst? Is it making the job quicker? Is it producing clearer graphics? Is it helping them to control the graphics environment? Those sort of things. It's probably quite useful to have an example of the code of the data that you're importing, putting into the system, or that you're using in terms of this is what we've got that we're feeding into our reports, or we're feeding into our graphics. You might look, you can be fairly creative. Do you just want to do a little screen dump of that area? Do you want to use ODS perhaps with a prop print? Do you want to use prop content so we can see the variables and their names and their sizes? Things like that. Think about what makes the presentation as informative as possible. Then think about what sort of samples of the code are going to be really valuable, so that you're essentially sharing a library of good chunks of code in principle. So if you're doing the ODS one, yeah, in principle you just do ODS on, ODS off, but there are other options you can use, and it might be useful to build that little set of the on and off environments so that people can understand how they can actually just go and run that bit of code in their code library. And again, samples of the output. What does it look like? And it might be the log. It might be one of the output files. Think carefully again. What is it that helps the viewer, the audience in your presentation, to really understand what it's all doing? Because that ultimately helps us to understand the answer to what's it doing for the data analyst. And then your final little section is a critical analysis, critical evaluation of what you have done as a team, as a pair. Thinking particularly of simple questions like, what went well? Why did it go well? What was it that was part of the approach you took that allowed you to be successful and achieve all of your objectives, your aim? But don't just concentrate on the good bits. The area that we learn most from as humans is where things didn't quite go so well. Effectively, our failures. Now, depending how you look at life, a failure, it didn't work, okay, I failed. Duh. I'm a failure. Not a helpful response. The real thing about failure is that you learn from it. So, what didn't work as well as you'd hoped? And why? Why didn't it go as well as you wanted it to? And then the third part of that question is, what would I do better next time? How would I make it less unreliable? How would I make myself more successful? Learning from your mistakes. And I mean, I go back to sort of business environments. And I'll take an example of project management. Because this is kind of an interesting area, because a lot of people with their CVs will say, I was successful in this, and this project. Trying to sell the fact that they are really great project managers because they've never had a failure. The problem for people who are doing recruiting is, why has that person not had any failures? Are they just lucky? Because if they're just lucky, they may not be lucky on my project that I'm recruiting them for. And I don't want someone to suddenly be unlucky. I would much, and many employers would be much happier recruiting some project manager who has had one or two failures in their portfolio over their lifetime, but where they can demonstrate they learnt from that failure. They understood what went wrong, they understood why it went wrong, and they've got a whole portfolio of ideas about how to avoid failure in the future. Now, a person who has learnt from failures is much, much more valuable as a recruit than someone who has been lucky so far.
They might just be really smart.
They might be really smart, that is true. That is indeed true. However, most humans tend not to be really, really smart, and most of us have one or two failures in our past. The important thing is that we've learnt from them. Now, if you are if it did go well, and you got good reasons for why it went well. I mean, take that example then. They're smart. That would come out of that. Why were they successful for every project? And as long as they've done that critical analysis and they can convey it, I did it because on this project I took care to do this, this and this because I learned that on my Prince 2 course, and on this one, different scenario, but I fixed that, that and that from what I learned last time, and because I'd also been communicating with colleagues and peers in the field, I avoided that pitfall and that pitfall. That's another way of justifying I'm not lucky. I've been thinking carefully. I've done the continuous professional development, CPD, and I'm using that to avoid all the danger points. But no, that's unlikely to happen to most of us. There are one or two who are like that, who have the natural aptitude and are brilliant. That's great. But most of us end up having a little bit of failure here, a little bit of failure there. But if we learn from it by understanding why it didn't work so well and what we need to do next time and learn from that and carry that forward, then we will all be able to develop as well. So do a bit of critical evaluation on your little project, what went well and why, what didn't go so well and why, and what the lesson is for the future. But nice point that, thank you. So that's the sort of area that I'd like, the way I'd like you to structure it. And after each presentation, so you've got 10 minutes, you come up here, load it on here, fire it up, do the presentation, and at the end of that 10 minutes or so, ish, I mean, not going to hold you to exactly 10 minutes plus or minus 0, you know, it's sort of around 10 minutes to give you a feel for how much content we want, how much thinking. But if you've got something really fabulous and it goes to 15 minutes, hey, that's not a problem. If it goes to 5 minutes, well, you know, think about what you've done, how can you add to it? So it gets closer to the 10 minutes. And what we'll all be thinking about after the presentation, and we'll give some feedback to the presenting pair, around these topic areas. Was the aim clear? How relevant do we think really that topic area, the context is? How does that fit into our developing understanding of the field of data analysis using SAS? Are the various samples and examples of the data, the code, and the output helpful to us to understand where that bit of research fits in, the activities fits in, that particular part helps us to develop our use of SAS in the future? Think about what are the really great parts of that presentation that really connected with me. And then I'd like everybody to think about one possible suggestion about the overall approach to presentation, the actual slides and so on, maybe that says, have you thought about improving it by doing something? And that's what that's about. What is it we could do to make it a better presentation? So that really gives you, I hope, a reasonable understanding of what the task is over the next 5-6 weeks. Any questions first?
The data that we're going to use for these, is it going to be related to, should it not be related to the big data we're going to be using for?
It can be whatever is useful for making the point. So if you want to short circuit the process a little bit, yeah, you could use the data that you want to use. But you don't have to. It's really very much up to you to decide precisely what's the best sort of data that will help you to make the real point. And with the ODS one, there's less about the data necessarily, except maybe you're going to be using a bit of some of the functionality, maybe the graphics, to show how it works, the impact of it. kind of a chicken and egg, that one, and I think that for those who choose the ODS system one topic and those who choose the graphics one may want to sort of negotiate between them as to whether you want to do that first, ODS first and then the graphics second, or graphics first, ODS second. It's kind of, there is a logic to having them in the sequence I've given as well as reverse sequence. I'll show you what I mean. Because ODS is about controlling the system, and graphics is actually using ODS to actually get the stuff onto the screen. But it might, because this will run relatively easily without it, you might want to come back to me and say, Richard, we think, as a group, switch those topics. I'm easy. Because I've got logic that works both ways. And I'm, at the moment, you know, I'm quite happy if you want to switch those two around, or even if some of you want to do ODS there, and some do it there, and some do graphics here, and some graphics there. Again, it's kind of up to you guys to negotiate how you handle that side. Because you might want to sort of link them together. So if we go back to the little spreadsheet, who would like to volunteer which groups would like to volunteer a presentation for that, for that, for that, for that, for that? So over to you now for about 10-15 minutes discussion for you to decide what or where you're going to fit into here. Okay?
I think we know what we want to do.
You know what you want to do.
Rich, my volunteer.
The ETL.
Hang on, sorry.
My volunteer in today. Mine is a team in today, so I'm not sure.
Oh, is it? Okay, well.
I should attend, so I have no contact information for it. So it turned up last week the first time.
Yeah, okay, so, well, make your own choice then. Right, you two.
We were thinking the ETL, data cleansing, and the new style graphics.
I said that, Richard.
Hold on. Just got a little formatting. Right.
We have
So you are.
Alex,
No. You've got us.
Harry,
Oh,
and yeah.
hang on. Well, I'm getting lost of it.
John.
Right. So. Sorry, which one? That one. No.
Harry and Callum.
Right. Yeah. Which you
We have
want to do?
data cleansing and graphics. We always discussed.
I noted it down while we were talking. We had different notes.
Okay. Volunteers for the next. Who else wants to? Cause
We did a bit on the first, second week.
Yeah, we got the notes from it.
Yeah, but I want
Which is one of the reasons I thought it'd be a good one to do.
sorry.
Got a head start on it. Plus, I read a bit about data mining a while back.
You
It was great, it wasn't great, I remember.
So you want to do? Sorry, tell me again. You want to do reporting and which other one?
What we need to think about. Think about how
You
to
don't have to use the data that we're going to use.
Hang on, let me just make it a bit bigger.
We need to make it something interesting. You said no,
Data sets.
Can you do any one?
but yeah, more fun.
Yeah. Well, until we
No,
until we got 4 in each set, each column. If not, okay, why don't you do the important one?
Next week, 2 weeks later. Well, full graphics.
Yeah,
On the
exactly.
same data set. Yeah, okay, that sounds great.
I can think sometimes. It's a disjointed process, but it happens.
Yeah.
I would decide do the graphics and the creating reports.
Sorry.
Do the graphics while they creating reports.
1 second. I'm also for it.
That way it gives us the most time to
Create.
choose
Oh,
it.
never mind.
Yeah.
There it is.
I can see the point of that.
Logical insert for the day. The most logical choice. Who's going to act as if we do it?
What? Damn it.
Well, if you're not good with the college.
Hold on.
How many?
I won't throw that over onto distinction.
What universe?
Do you want?
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know it.
It's not my breath, it's sweet.
I know it is.
Apparently there's a queue. What's that in your glasses?
Twine.
Keeping them together.
They're broken as hell, so I've used them
Backing up
together.
with the elite
That.
sword and the cover full of battery.
I'm resourceful.
It's someone that's like stuck some string on it.
I did. I wrapped the lens around the string.
That's genius.
Okay, right. So,
I wouldn't say it. I
you
wouldn't
are,
say it's
which one are you?
genius.
Let's
Sorry.
do your take and then
I'd say it's being poor.
That one, yeah, what do you want
Which
to
two are
do?
you going to take?
There's really a lot of hours on the board.
Sorry?
The third match.
3rd of March.
We figured it out. It was
Oh,
talking.
one?
Look forward thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I've really
Two and four, we think.
Yes, you can do it.
Okay.
I think that's what we did.
That's what we did.
Oh, excellent. 2 and 4, if that's okay.
Choose a username.
So, and you
A bit light
are,
on
remind me again?
Thomas.
Do an ODS.
Right.
No, it's such a sincere name.
That one and that
What's
one.
your name?
Please.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I was going to do like yours number 2.
So we still haven't anybody to do the ODS side. Okay, right. And which do you
I'll
want to
just
do?
wait till next week on Thursday. So no, I can't. 'Cause it's
Sorry?
spoilers.
Don't even go.
Sorry, you are?
I did this. I did it by accident. Game of Thrones.
Lusa.
I know, like,
Yeah,
half the
Joseph.
story.
Yeah.
Because even the banner of this one.
And we've got 4 already for that, so we can't do that.
Just checking that you spelled it right.
ODS? Okay, go for ODS.
I'll tell you
Do
that.
it. That's a good user.
Okay, right.
Sorry, one
So now we've got...
And we're not doing the creating reports because they're interesting.
I haven't seen that advertisement.
Sorry?
We want to do creating reports.
So who are you? Adam there. We've got 4 there, we've got 4 there, so you basically got those 2. So,
I think he changed courses. Sorry, I think he changed courses.
okay, that's...
Adam, is it?
Yeah, yeah. One of the stone.
I thought he changed courses. I see him around uni every now and then.
Not many people work on Facebook.
Okay folks, you reasonably happy with your choices? Okay, right. So I'll pop this now up on here. Where should we put it?
Does it have the dates on, just so we're reminded?
Pardon?
Does it have the dates on, just so we're reminded?
There.
Alright, okay.
So where should we put it? I'll put it up, I think. Let's see. No, we'll do it in here. Okay, so you can find it.
I've already got international.
Yeah. There you are, that's what's actually recorded, available from Blackboard, so it'll help you to remember. Now the other thing, just to show you, you've got this other creating presentations as a sort of a refresher, and for those of you who are on Joint Honours programme, then this little one will take you through some of the questions you need to ask yourself as you think about developing a presentation. The types of questions which are important, the types of questions that will help you provide a very, very clear focus. It'll help you to also think about how to filter out some of the stuff that you're really interested in, but which doesn't actually make your presentation, your communication, any more effective. The stuff that's kind of redundant. And it'll help you to filter out all the stuff you'd like to cover, but actually focus on the stuff you need to cover to get that message across, so that your aim is met, your objectives are satisfied. So that's all in there. Right, I suggest what we do now is we have a little break, and then when you get back, then you can start researching and asking questions. I can also, if you'd like, give you a few tips about how to actually structure some of the work you need to do.